Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for joining our Resource Management Tool webinar for the life sciences industry. Today, Andy Grubb is going to walk us through a presentation and live demonstration and field any questions you have, but please feel free to use the GoToMeeting interface to ask any questions during the presentation. So with that, I will turn it over to Andy.
Thanks, Billy. So hello, everyone. My name is Andy Grubb, and this is the Insights RM webinar, Bridging the Gap, brought to you by Intrinsic Clinical Systems. So as we begin here, I just want to talk a little bit about who exactly we are. So you can see Intrinsic Clinical Systems is who is sponsoring the webinar, who created the tool. And Pharmaca Consulting is who I actually work for. It's two companies. Many of the same people work across both of them. The way this all came about, Pharmaca Consulting has been around for over a decade, consulting in the biopharma industry. I've been there for more than 10 years myself. Through the years, we have done a number of resource management projects across many different companies, large and small, and kind of seen the good and the bad with the tools that were available that these different companies were purchasing or using. And we realized that we could do better, that there was a space in between where we could create our own system, and that's really where Intrinsic came from. Pharmaca is kind of the consulting arm. Intrinsic is the product arm. So you can see that on the left here we have a number of different products that we sell. The resource management tool being one of them. So that's just a little bit about us and exactly who we are and the different names that you'll see. So as far as this webinar goes, like I said, we kind of through the years had seen all the different kinds of resource management that different companies were using. And it really fell in two buckets. You would get the Excel users, kind of the top row here, right? So spreadsheet after spreadsheet, calculated columns, conditional formatting, cutting and pasting, very labor intensive. You can absolutely do resource management that way, but you are going to tire of it very quickly. The other end of the spectrum is the $1 million solutions that you see in the bottom row here. These are off-the-shelf tools that you purchase that are incredibly expensive. They take an enormous effort to really get up and running. They take a dedicated team of people to use. I was on a team like this at a major pharma company for a number of years. We had more than 50 people working on this team just to support the tool for the whole organization. It was a monthly cycle where we updated algorithms and reported back for budgetary purposes, and it was an incredibly complicated system. And obviously 50 people on your team, very expensive, plus the cost of the tool. So really, these are the two extremes that you see used all the time. But there's space in between, right? So everyone has Excel, it doesn't cost anything, you already have it. No one wants to pay $1 million for a tool. So we found that we could bridge the gap. We could fit in between those two different solutions. So what we offer in the Insights RM tool is algorithms, right? Fully featured algorithms that will run against the book of business to calculate your projected demand. We also have the ability where you can import automatically from a source of some sort. Most people use Microsoft Project, but it could be any source. And you can connect that automatically to the tool so that you're importing data, on an automated schedule, monthly, weekly, whatever you'd like. We offer name resource allocation. So this is the capacity planning. This is where you are taking, a list of named employees and assigning them to work. So we have project 1, project 2, project 3, employee 1, 2, 3. We're actually assigning who works on what. That's all done inside the tool. It also includes all your standard reporting that you're used to seeing. The reports that are standard for resource management, the ability to filter, pivot, export data, images, all those things that you're used to. That's all in the tool. It also can connect using our API to business intelligence tools. So I'll show you here. I have mine connected to Power BI, but it could be Spotfire, it could be Tableau, it could be whatever you use. But using the API, you can automatically connect the data from the tool into your BI system and create your own reports, outside of what we offer. And finally, it's cloud-based. It all lives, not on your servers, so you're not using your space and your bandwidth, and it's Microsoft secured. They keep the data in their cloud, and you use Microsoft logins, which is something that everyone's already comfortable using. And just on the right side of the screen here, you can see this is just the menu for the tool itself. These are the things that you get right out of the box. So the meat of this webinar is really the demo of the tool, which I will show you in a second. It's a live version. It's fully featured. You'll see everything that I've just described. But I just wanted to show everyone what it looks like and just talk quickly about what you're going to see so you can know what to expect. So this is the first report that you see when you load up the tool. This is the demand projection. So this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. This is all the demand that's been generated by running your book of business through your algorithms, all rolled up to one level. You can see it goes out a couple years here. Like I said, this is the first report that loads up. From here, you can get a key as to what the different colors mean. You can filter and pivot from the menu in the top right. You can navigate to other reports in the tool. The other piece that's really this kind of the second report is the capacity planning piece. So this is the named resource allocation. This is a listing of all your employees, that you've added to the tool by role and what they're working on month over month. So you can see that the boxes are color coded depending on how allocated they are for a particular month. And by navigating into any of these boxes, I can assign or remove, I can manage the tasks of an individual person, project by project. And you can see the breakdown of how much work, how much of an FTE, how much of their percentage of time will be allocated to for each project that they've been assigned. So that was just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to see here. So at this point, I'm going to load up the demo and just start showing you the live tool. Feel free to type any questions into the chat. Billy will compile those and we'll get to those at the appropriate time. But ask anything if you have any questions about anything I show or I go too quickly. Please ask. Happy to go over it again. So when you log into the tool, this is what you get. Initially, you'll see the set of gray boxes here. We call these domains. So we have this one set up for clinical development, regulatory, and manufacturing. This can be any set of domains that you want to use. You could just have it all inside of one. The idea being that inside each domain, the algorithms would be different. So you could imagine that, clinical and regulatory and manufacturing each use different styles of algorithms, or could use different styles. So you could have a series of 3 domains that are, big picture doing the same thing, but at a micro level, they are calculating those things a little bit differently. And then you could conceivably roll all of this up inside Power BI, right? These all link directly to your business intelligence tool. You can roll all the data up there. Or they could just be completely separate units that you want to keep separate. Regardless, this is the starting page. So you pick your domain. I'm going to use clinical development today. And I'll log in here. You can see the first thing it does is it loads all of our data. It loads our book of business, our algorithms, generates the projections, and there you go. So this is basically the screenshot that you just saw a minute ago of our demand projection. So this was just live calculated on the server. This is our entire book of business run through each of our algorithms, projected out 3 years, right, through September of 2020. So this is kind of a neat view, right? This is all of our demand rolled up to the highest level. You can see, you know, we need 200-300 FTEs per month here. If I hover over any of these bars, the color segment there's a pop-up that tells me exactly the breakdown here. So there's a key as to what the colors mean. So orange is the biometrics organization. If I look at this one for October, you can see that we're projecting that we need 70 FTEs. Our current head count's 41. Blue is ClinOps, projecting 59. Our head count's 41. So you get a little bit more information as you roll over each of these areas. If I were to click on it, I get a pop-up that breaks it down even further. So this breaks down exactly which work item, so which, that's essentially a study, an activity is generating what number, right? So this 123 BA study is, you know, in progress, it's in life, and it's generating 1/10 of an FTE for this month. And you can go down the list and see them all, and then it just sums them up at the bottom. By role. So this is the data manager, and the med writer also has a contribution to this number, this 55.6. So just by kind of hovering and clicking right on the main screen here, you can really dive down into what each of these numbers are. But for most people, this top level roll up isn't particularly useful. So up at the top, you have the 3 bars. This opens up the menu. And from here, I can start to dive into the data a little bit. So I can pivot exactly how my data is broken down. So this is currently the view by organization, right? So I have the 3 options: biometrics, ClinOps, and research. I can change that so instead it's grouped by department. So the exact same data, except it's split out by the different departments that we're modeling, right? Data management, medical, etc. And then there's one further breakdown. I can group it by role. So this is actually my preferred view. These are the 10 different roles that we're modeling inside the tool today. This can be as few or as many as you would like to model. For this purpose, we just have 10. And you can see the different roles here named. So I'll expand the key so we can see exactly what they are. So like I said, this is the exact same data that you've seen in each of the views, just broken down a little bit differently. And again, if I hover over any of these and click, I get a breakdown of exactly what it is I'm looking at. So, okay, so now I have it broken down by role. That's interesting, but let's just show one role. So if I unselect everything and just pick one, let's just pick on the CRA today. You can see, now this is a little bit more actionable. This is the projected number of CRAs, just one specific role that I'm forecasting I need over the next 3 years. So you can clearly see that I'm going to need 28, 28, 27, 31. I mean, that's a very kind of steady number for the next 6, 12 months before it starts to tail off towards the, you know, a little bit further into the book of business. But this is actionable data. I may know that I have, you know, 25 CRAs currently employed, and you know, in the next couple months they can either work a little bit beyond 100%, or I need to flex up my organization to reach, you know, this capacity that I'm anticipating needing. So that's kind of a very quick way to get an answer to a question. I can of course filter even further, right? I can show just the CRAs that I need in oncology for whatever reason, or just the CRAs that I need for a specific study, right? This 123 BA study that we're talking about. And you can see how many CRAs I need month over month, you know, a half, a little bit more than one, a little bit less than one. So with just a couple clicks, I can really dive into the data, you know, down to a study level, a role within a study, and see exactly what it is that I'm projecting I need. So let's go back. I can hit the reset button here. I'm just kind of reset it back to the top level. There is another button up here where I can show head count. So I have the ability to add my current head count to the tool and then show it next to what I'm projecting. So you can see by clicking that, I just added a second bar next to each of the projection demands. And so this gives me a, obviously dummy data here, but this is my head count data that I've added to the tool. So if I go through the same process, and let's group by role, and then just show the CRAs, now you can see that, I only have 10 CRAs right now, but I need 28 this month. So clearly I have to do something, outsource some work, hire some new folks. So this is again a really quick way to really get a sense of where your gaps might be. I can export at any point in time. As I filter down, I can export that image, click it, and all of a sudden I can just save it as a PNG file to use in a report or email or however you need it. I can, like I said, I can reset, kind of go back to the top level if I want to dig into the data, a different way. So before I go on, I'd just like to, I've been mentioning the book of business, the schedule that we're talking about. I want to talk a little bit about that and where that comes from. So that's the source data for this entire tool. This comes from you. A typical source would be Microsoft Project, a scheduling tool of some sort, where you have a listing of your work that you're doing and some timelines associated with it. So it's a very simple file. I have an example here of the one that we're actually using today in the tool. This is our dummy file. So in this file, it's 6 columns. So there's the breakdown of the work, right? So therapeutic area, the program that's within, and then a work item. This work item is synonymous with a study. So this study, this ATAN 654 study, happens over 5 different activities, and these are the activities that we've set up here. And then each activity has a beginning and an end date, and that's all the data that we need to run this tool. So now we know when this study is happening, we know when each activity is happening, and we can apply our different algorithms against these different time ranges, and that's where we generate our demand projections. And like I said, this file can come from Microsoft Project, another scheduling source. Smaller companies sometimes don't even use that really. You might just have this in an Excel file. So the tool itself, if I go back for a second, if I click on the left, you can open up our menu and you can see all the different reports that we have and then the different management sections. The tool itself, if I go into schedules, this is where all our books of business are kept, allows me to add a schedule. So at any point in time, I can just come in here, choose a file to upload, select something that I've pulled out of Project or wherever, or even just built myself, upload it into the tool, give it a name, and just like that, you've got a new schedule that you can run all your projections and reports on. There's always a drop down on the top right. I can pick the schedule that I want to look at. So you can see that I can kind of go back in time here and take a look at what my June book of business looked like versus any of the other ones that I have in here. You can see I actually have one in here where I took 5 studies out just to see what it would look like. This is a quick and easy way to kind of run projections inside the tool. You alter your book of business in some way, you upload the altered file, give it a different name, and you can very quickly flip between, what's currently your book and what you're thinking about changing, removing some studies or adding some work in some way. So I can add this as a CSV or Excel file. I can upload an actual MS Project schedule that I've, exported from Project itself. And we have the ability to automatically connect to Project. So we can set up the tool so that it is pulling directly from Project. There's no manual upload. On some regular basis, weekly or monthly, we pull the data out of Project as your source for this. So you always have a current version without having to manually upload the data. You can, of course, always view the current schedule as well. There's a button here for that. This just pops up. This is exactly what I was showing you in the Excel file. It's the exact same data. So, so that's the piece about schedules, and that's kind of where all our data comes from. That's the source. We need that schedule file so we can run our algorithms. Now the algorithms themselves, that's the time allocations table here. So if I click into this, load up the allocations, this is the breakdown of exactly what we're modeling here. So you can see that there is, you know, kind of an organization breakdown, right? So there's the biometrics organization has the statistics department. Inside statistics, there's the role of statistician. The statistician works during 3 different activities in a given study, right? Startup, in life, and closeout. And when they work during these activities, these are the FTEs that they need to do their work for a low complexity, medium complexity, and high complexity study. And I can talk about that in a second. By default, everything's calculated off of medium, but you absolutely have the ability to kind of trigger something to calculate low or high as needed. But you know, so if a statistician is working during the life of a study, that statistician is generating 0.1 FTEs per month for however long that phase lasts for a given study. So this is the guts of your algorithm, of all your algorithms. And you can see as I scroll down here, you see all the different roles that we're modeling. You know, role by activity here. It's this combination that's key. And it's just a big table. You can export this and change it. You could import a version of your own if you wanted to. But let's say that I know that I want to change one of these values. I can actually just click inside the tool here and just change it on the fly. So I just changed the low complexity for the statistician to you know, 0.07 of an FTE instead of 0.05. Very, very simple to edit. And that's really the case for everything inside the tool. You know, as kind of a super user, as an administrator of the tool, it's designed to not be to not need a programmer to go in and change it for you. You find it in the menu like this, you find it in a table, you click, you change, that's it. So let's go back to the actual reports for a second. Now that we've seen the main report, we've seen the source data, the book of business, how it's generated, we've seen the algorithms and that time allocation table, you know, where we're getting our numbers from. So that's how this report comes to be. But there's a second side to all of this. There is the capacity planning report. So this is kind of the other side of the coin. This is where we now take our list of employees, you can see all their names here, separated out by role, and we actually assign them to projects from our book of business. So there's a couple hundred different employees in here. I am once again going to pick on CRA. I'm just going to show the CRAs because I know that they've already been edited a number of times. So if I load up the CRAs here, you see the list of them all. You can start to assign work to people. And you can see that the first couple people here have already been assigned a lot of work. If I click on Arthur, one of the cells under Arthur for November, you get a pop-up that shows exactly what it is that he's working on. So he's been assigned to this 123 BA study that's expected to use 50% of his time, 0.5 FTE, and a second study that uses 0.5 FTE. And you can see that obviously that adds to 1 FTE, 100%. So that cell is this kind of blue-green. The next month, however, that 123 study goes up. Instead of 50, it's 85%. So now he's working, you know, at 135% of his capacity. That may be sustainable for a month or a short-term period, probably not long-term. So you would consider Arthur to be over-allocated. He has too much work based on what we're projecting these studies to take. So it's very easy to click into these cells and see who is working on what and to change around assignments. So if I go into, let's start refresh here with Blanche. I'll click Manage her tasks. I get the full pop-up. I can just start selecting work for her. If I pick this 3001 study, you can see it's during this month, it's in startup. You can see the range where it's in startup from October through next March, and that's 50% of her time. So if I add that to her and click Done, you can see I just assigned her half an FTE from now through March just by giving her that study. If I go to March and let's add it again, you can see that now that study has moved to a different phase. Startup's over, it's now in life, and it's now 0.85 FTEs. And again, that runs for a handful of months. So I'm going to add that to Blanche. And then here in August, when that piece ends, once again, I'm going to select that same study, and you can see now it's closeout to 30% of an FTE for a couple months. We'll add that. So I just assigned Blanche to the life of that study, and you can see her work capacity now. She has room, certainly in the next 6 months, to do another study. She has capacity. So I can go in, pick something different. That study's not active. We actually, as you select things in this list, you will see, it will tell you if the study's active or not. It will suggest things. So if you select a study and this is all blank and it says 0, that means that this study is not active during this month. It hasn't started yet. So here, this 830 study, again, is in startup for a couple months. So I'll add that to Blanche. And you can see that she's now 100% allocated, well, really for almost an entire year. So it's quite simple to manage the work that a set of people is what they're doing, which projects they're working on, for how long, and how much they're assigned for. Now, the tool itself suggests that this is 50%, but I have the ability to type anything in here. I know that Blanche is going on vacation. I'm going to assign her vacation for, let's say she's taking 1 day a week, so 20%. And I can say that she's going to do that for a year, so for all of 2018. And there you go. So, all of a sudden now I added her as vacation. So we make suggestions based on what we're projecting this work to be, but inside the capacity planning here, you have the ability to A, free type anything that you know about, or B, override any of these. So if I pulled up this study and it suggested 50%, I can say, well, it needs 50%, but I'm only going to assign Blanche 10% because I know I have another person that's going to be doing the remaining 40, or whatever your allocations are. So in this way, you can split out your work amongst all your people and see exactly who's doing what, who has capacity, or who might be over allocated. And as we discussed before, you can kind of filter and pivot up here how you're grouping, how you're showing the different employees. You can change your date range, and I have the button to just kind of reset and go back to my top level view of all my different employees. So that's the capacity planning piece. That's the named resource allocation. There is a second report that we have, the staffing timeline, which is that same data, that same capacity planning data, but from a study perspective. So we just saw it from the employee perspective. I have this employee Blanche, she's working on these 5 studies. But if you kind of turn that on its side, I have this study 1, 2, 3, which employees are working on it. So that's what this is. This is kind of a Gantt view of the actual study. So you can see, the time range when program level work or startup is happening. And then there's this little box underneath that shows these kind of 2 numbers. So the top number, the numerator, the 2.85, that's how many people we currently have assigned to do work in this month. And the denominator, 3.9, that's how much we're projecting we need. So, you can see if I click on the box, it'll open up and show me exactly who's working on this study for October. So I have, a bunch of different names working at various percentages, but I'm still almost a full FTE understaffed for this work here. So if I click on it and open up the box, this is exactly what we saw on the other screen. But like I said, this is instead of being from the employee's perspective, this is from just the study's perspective. So it's just kind of turned on its side. Now I can see all the different employees that are assigned to this study, what activity they're working in during this range. So if I want to pick an employee, I can kind of go into my list. We'll pick a data manager, work during startup, let's add the data manager, and I probably need another one. It's another 40%. We'll add that. So by adding a couple more people now, you can see that I've upped my my allocation to 3.65. So this is almost fully staffed for this month and a couple months into the future. And then I'm overstaffed a little bit while the study is in life. But it's the same data, it's the same assignments between study and employee. It's just assigned by study instead of by employee. That's this other report, this other view. And you can see there's a whole list of all your studies from your book of business. Again, I can change the date range. I can filter down so I'm only showing the study I'm interested in, therapeutic area. I want to show all my studies, but I only want to show, oops, I don't want to see that. I only want to show, my oncology studies for whatever reason, and manage those. So you get your normal kind of filters and pivots to go through here. And again, I can change the actual book of business that I'm looking at. And reset, just kind of go back to the beginning and show all. So there's one more report that I want to show here and talk about. It's the timeline visualization. So this is actually very similar to the staffing timeline. It's the Gantt view of your entire book of business, but this is kind of a non-interactive view in the sense that you're not changing any of the data in this view. You're just looking at it. So this is showing me my book of business, my entire book of business, laid out Gantt style. So once again, I can see this top level study, right? This 1, 2, 3 study. I can see when the program level is happening. If I hover over any of the bars, I can see the actual date range. Here's the early submission, startup phase, in life phase, et cetera, et cetera. And I can scroll down and see my whole book over time. On the left here, I can kind of collapse the levels and just get a high level view of overview of each of the studies. I have the same, filters that I've been showing here. I can export the image. I can show the display as months instead of years, kind of a more granular view of the book. So like I said, this is not an interactive report in the sense that I can change any of this data. It's just, you're just consuming the data at this point. So those are the major reports. There's 4 kind of graphic reports that you can get. There's also this last reports area. This is for actually pulling data directly out of the tool. So everything that you've put in here, your employee list, your schedule that you've added in, I can export all of those things, right? I can take a look at the schedule. I can pull it out as a file. I can take a look at my organizations, departments, roles, everything in here I can pull out as a file. And this is a really easy way to kind of create templates for these things. If let's say you're resetting your time allocations for all your different roles across all your different organizations, you can pull that out as a file, and you could have, you could send this to the CRAs and just say, this is, what we're currently calculating for you in the tool. Is this right? What should, what makes more sense? Should we make any changes? They can edit that. You can add it back in as an upload. And that goes for each of these different reports in here. You can see what they are. You can pull it out. You can add it back in. You can get a full export I can click this download button, and this downloads everything, each of these different sections into a different tab of an Excel workbook. So I just have everything in one file. And I can pull out, of course, my demands and my current projections and the headcount piece. And then there's one final thing here that I mentioned earlier, is this Power BI connection. So we have it, like I said, set up for Power BI, but this could be connected to any business intelligence reporting tool, Tableau, Spotfire. There are others out there that people use. We use Power BI. It's currently set for that. I can download a Power BI file to add, if I wanted to download to Power BI desktop or something, but I can also connect it using the API, which I've already done. And so if I bring up, this is my version of Power BI desktop. This is all the data from the tool. I can, very easily just go in here and refresh, and it just re-downloads everything, from the tool itself, reconnects it inside the model, and you can see, all the data inside the tool, just like you would in the reports inside the tool. You now get the reports in Power BI. So this is obviously completely customizable, right? I can change the visualizations, I can change the fields I'm reporting on, I can make my own. It's a really powerful way to kind of customize and craft a series of reports on your data that we may not give you out of the box. And this works with any of the tools. If I go back to the different domains I showed at the very start, you might have manufacturing, you might have regulatory data. You can pull each of those into Power BI separately and then roll them up in some way, report on all of them together, create a dashboard, with slightly different segments for each of the domains you want to report on. That can all be done in Power BI, kind of outside the tool, but connected to the data behind the scenes. So that's a kind of a really neat, very powerful way to further report and analyze everything that we're generating inside the tool. So at this point, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of pause and see if we've received any questions. So I'll ask Billy what we've got.
Hey, Andy. Yes, we received a couple questions. I'll go through them. Like I said, anyone wants to ask any questions, please submit them. So the first question is, can we create algorithms and roles specific to our company?
Yes, that's a great question. The answer is absolutely. Everything that I've shown here today is obviously dummy data that we've set up for the purposes of the demo. So the names of things, the titles of things, the categories of things, that is all customizable. So I can go into time allocations here, and you can see that these are the algorithms. I've grouped it by organization, department, and role. But this could be anything. This could be, business unit, country, and role. It's whatever you want to call it, whatever your organization currently calls it. We can absolutely call it that. We can then create, model any role that you want. So instead of biometrics, maybe it is, or clinical operations, you have different names for things. The names don't really matter. We add whatever you have into the tool. We model whichever roles you want. The activities, some people use startup, some people use, ongoing instead of in life. Whatever the names are inside here, I can change them. I can add them. I can add new activities. I can change all of this, to customize it for your organization and create your own algorithms based on exactly what it is you want to model.
Great. Next question we received is, can we import timeline data into the resource management tool we use, Microsoft Project Server?
Yes, so I did touch on this briefly. You absolutely can import the data. If I go into schedules here, I can import it manually. I can download something out of Project, and I mean it's as simple as clicking this button and uploading it in. I can download it as a CSV and manipulate it or do whatever I need to, take things out that don't apply necessarily and add that in as a schedule. This can also be automatically connected to Microsoft Project or other scheduling tools as well. But Project is what we have done most frequently, so that this import is automated, and you don't have to touch it. Every month on the first of the month or whatever, you pull the fresh book of business out of Project. You're always working with fresh data. Everyone knows that whatever you're seeing in the tool is current as of the first of the month. Whatever your preferred schedule is, absolutely that can be done.
All right, next up we have, we don't have a CTMS where we have a list of our studies with milestones. What do you recommend for this?
For CTMS, there are a million different choices out there. Again, you can definitely pay a lot of money, just like with a resource management tool. Pharmica has a similar style of CTMS, a cloud-based version of CTMS that is a little bit lighter weight, kind of designed to fit in a space that I think a lot of people are looking to to run their CTMS in. So they don't want to do it by hands. They don't want to spend a ton of money on a really expensive and complicated CTMS system. So it really depends on exactly what your needs are, but I think a lot of organizations kind of fall in this space in between. There's a gap between having nothing, using Excel, and having something that costs a lot of money, and we try and fill that space with what we offer.
All right, great. And this appears to be the last question we received, so we'll wrap up after this if we don't receive any more. We have data from CTMS, financial systems, Microsoft Project Server, etc. Could we integrate this data with this resource management data?
Yes. So the integration of data can definitely be done. Again, because every organization is different, that is kind of part of the initialization of the tool. We have to set it up, for you. We would customize, like I said, the names of things, the hierarchy of your organization and activities and all that, as well as your data sources. So it might be your schedule, it might be your time tracking, it might be your head count. All those things can come from different sources. We can integrate those and add them to the tool, absolutely. Interestingly, we're actually in the process of developing our own time tracking tool, another kind of cloud-based tool, much like you see here, that will eventually be fully integrated with the resource management tool. So the time tracking and the resource management can roll up together, and you get the the planned and the actuals all built inside of kind of one system.
All right, great. Well, that seems to be the last questions we received. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. We will be posting this webinar on the Pharmica and Intrinsic sites. I will send out an email notifying everyone when it's up, so if you enjoyed the content, know anyone else who might benefit from seeing it, either in your workplace or your social media network, please share it. If anyone's interested in learning more about the work we do with the resource tool or any of our other areas, please reach out to myself or Andy. And again, thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.